You may have seen in the news that Nigel Farage has made a 6-minute video posted to social media, which I will find and link in the description below, to claim that his bank accounts were closed without explanation. He said that he was with a prestigious banking group, but he did not name, for more than 40 years, and said that he received a letter from the bank to tell him that his personal and his business accounts were going to be closed. He claimed that they'd given no explanation in the letter as to the reason behind the closures, and that he'd since been told over the phone that this move was a commercial decision. He said in the 6-minute video that losing his bank account was the equivalent of being a non-person, and that the decision would fundamentally affect his future career and even whether he could go on living in the UK. Now, this is an issue that I've raised many times over before. Now, just to absolutely reiterate, this video does not have a partner or a sponsor or anything else. But I do work with various companies to help to keep your data safe. And this is precisely why. So whilst this video is not sponsored, I will put some links in the description below. I'm not going to mention them because I'm telling you that it's not sponsored, I'm not partnered or anything like that for this video. But I will put those links in the description below anyway if you want to go and check those out. Because keeping your data safe is absolutely fundamentally important. And I'll tell you why, and I'll give you an example. Because exactly this scenario that Nigel Farage is facing right now, we've had to deal with for clients of ours. They've approached us having their bank accounts closed down, and not just having their bank accounts closed down, but they've lost access to mobile phone accounts, they've lost access to credit cards. They've even had their other banks with whom they had a mortgage and a savings account use their what is known as the right of offset. So they had the bank had the right to offset the money in a savings account against the money they owed on loans and the mortgage. So essentially wiping out their savings against the debts that they had in those accounts, and then otherwise calling it in, saying that you now need to repay all this money. Now, you can take anything like this if you have a complaint. You can take it to the Financial Ombudsman Service, who deal with complaints when you've not been treated fairly, because financial organizations are supposed to treat you fairly. However, if the bank has complied with the terms and conditions of the contract, the laws and the rules and the regulations in place at the time to do with your money and the banking, good industry banking practice. Now, there are practice codes with which they are supposed to comply, but most of those don't specifically go into account closures. They just deal more generally with treating you fairly. And moreover, the terms and conditions that apply to that specific account, that specific borrowing that you have at that one time. If they've done all of that, the Financial Ombudsman Service is unlikely to uphold a complaint, and they are unlikely to think that the bank has treated you unfairly, and thus unlikely to render any kind of remedy in your favour. So what do you do about that? Well, there's only really a couple of things you can do. You can write to the bank and plead with them to say you really haven't done anything wrong and you're not aware of anything wrong, and if there is, you'd like the opportunity to do something about it. But the problem with that is that if the bank suspects, even just suspects, that you have any involvement with anyone else that is involved in money laundering or terrorism or some kind of fraudulent activity, and in Nigel Farage's case, I'm not saying it's any of those. I'm absolutely not saying that. But because he is what would probably be considered a politically exposed person, there may be people with whom he has had genuine dealings that the bank has then developed concerns about, and therefore they've gone through this trail of connections and decided, let's just close all of those accounts to limit our risk of exposure for any kind of wrongdoing from any of these people in any of these networks. And of course, a politician such as Nigel Farage, whether you love him or you hate him, a politician in that position is going to have a significant fan base and is going to have a significant number of people that stand against him. And so if there are people that are undertaking illicit activities that are somehow involved with someone like him, then that might cause the bank to raise red flags and delve into their terms and conditions to see whether they can just cut their economic and commercial loss before it happens, which is my best guess as to what the bank has done. They've probably decided, for any one of any number of reasons, to simply exercise their right under the contract to terminate the account with or without notice, depending on what the terms and conditions say, depending on what the rules they're relying on say, and close those accounts. So in many of my videos, I tell you to avoid scams, I tell you how to avoid scams, and I bring to you partners with whom that I work that I believe will bring you a benefit. Now, the only reason I'm mentioning that I do work with partners in this video is not partnered. The only reason I'm mentioning that I do is that some people complain about it, but I choose them carefully. It's either a standing desk, which I genuinely believe is going to help you if you're working all day long, or it's a product or a service that helps to protect your safety or remove your data from somewhere online or something along those lines. So I do on occasion bring those things to you, but all in line with me helping you to avoid scams and helping you to avoid having your identity stolen and getting yourself into these difficulties such as Nigel Farage. So a lot of people have asked me to comment on that in the comment section, obviously. A lot of people have said, what do I think about it? Do I think it's right? Those are my views. In essence, the bank can do what they've done if it's in line with their terms and conditions. And if it is, then the Ombudsman is not likely to uphold a complaint. But what else can you do about it? I would be going, first of all, to the credit reference agencies to see whether there's anything on your record that shouldn't be there, because we've done that both for ourselves and for clients before now, where they've had something pop up on a credit report that had nothing to do with them. There was a name and an address associated that was actually nothing to do with our client, and so all they had to do was exercise their right to have it removed. So not that I think for a moment that Nigel Farage hasn't thought of that, but if he hasn't thought of that, he might want to try doing that. This is not legal advice, this is just general guidance. For anyone that is in that situation, if they don't know what the problem is, they need to start hunting for it in the only places that they can find. The one place they won't find it is the bank that's made the decision. Because if there is a reason, even if it's not Nigel Farage himself, if it is someone even 2 or 3 times disconnected from him, but through the 6 degrees of separation, somebody connected through that grapevine is somehow connected that the bank has concerns over, the bank cannot tip off any concerns they have about that person if they have concerns about that person, money laundering or fraudulent activity and so on. They cannot, for example, tell Nigel Farage, yes, well, the reason we decided to close your account is because XYZ person we have concerns about because we think they're doing something nefarious. They can't say that. There are rules and laws against tipping off, which is what it's known as. These are under the robust anti-money laundering regulations and measures that are in place on banks, as well as lots of other professionals, to prevent them from tipping off someone, ultimately, even if it is through 2 or 3 degrees of separation. So I hope that helps to explain that. I hope that helps to just drill home the warning to you to protect your identity online. So as I said, that's why I bring you valuable resources, and I constantly tell you to look out for these scams and don't fall for them. If you found that in any way interesting, entertaining, useful, or some sort of guidance and answering your questions, please smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.